before we get into
Evening, Kevin. You almost forgot my name there.
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah. It's nothing to do with you. It's not you. It's me. It's a senior
Of course.
moment. You know, they call me the
I know my place.
They call me the Joe Biden of broadcasting. Now, before we get on to, I want to talk to you about Rishi Sunak turning to his sworn enemy for help, Boris Johnson. If he thinks Boris Johnson's going to dig him out of a hole, he's got another thing coming. But that notwithstanding, there's a new poll out today which reveals that Nigel Farage is on course to win Clacton, but that he will probably be the only Reform UK man or candidate to win a seat. But also all these Tory bigwigs are on their way out, or could be, according to this poll. We're talking about Penny Mordaunt. We're talking about Jeremy Hunt. We're talking about Grant Shapps. We're talking about all sorts of big guns. Such is the nature of the Tory meltdown that they're facing political oblivion, that these huge names, big names in the Tory firmament for many years now, are going to get voted out. I mean, I know we keep saying this, but the size of this Tory catastrophe is just epic, isn't it?
It's no more than they deserve. You touched on this just before we started our discussion. I think the foundations of this are to do with Partygate. That was such a betrayal of the British people. Whether you agreed with the COVID response or not, people were sacrificing things on so many different levels, whether it's to do with schools being closed, businesses being shut, not seeing loved ones, and abiding by a set of restrictions that we now know don't make a lot of sense. But people were sacrificing many aspects of their life. And meanwhile, we had our government, the only hospitality units opened at times in the country down the street, Whitehall, who were brazenly breaking the rules that they themselves set. And I don't think the government have come back from that. And the Tories are going to pay a price. There's obviously other things that have gone on that compound the problem, such as the ongoing cost of living crisis on the Tories' watch, the fact that the national debt has more than doubled since the Tories have been in power, the fact that our NHS waiting lists are now over 7 million, which is record figures, the fact that our infrastructures are crumbling, our public services are crumbling, and we're bearing the biggest tax burden since just after the Second World War. So, you know, it's almost like paraphrase in reverse. What did the Romans do for us? Yeah. What did this government do wrong for us? Many, many things. And I think they've run out of steam. You know, they've been in too long, but on every single key measure, they've failed. And then there's many other things we could talk about as well. Like, for instance, we're at a stage now where 1.9 million net migration over the last 3 years. And then Rishi Sunak today tweets that we've got to stop relying on foreign imported food. I mean, he's basically arguing against himself throughout this whole campaign. If you look at, for instance, that, you know, there's unregulated, cheap foreign food flooding into the country, which is putting our farmers at a competitive disadvantage. Yeah. And many, many other measures that are making our farmers struggle to keep their heads above water. And he has the barefaced cheek to somehow say that he's going to solve the problem that he actually created. And this is happening time and time again on this election campaign. The Tories are coming up with, in inverted commas, solutions to the problems that they created. And people have had enough. But I think the foundations of this, they started with Partygate.
I think you're absolutely right, James. And today the Prime Minister was standing there in this sort of hoedown bar with sort of haystacks everywhere and a brand new tractor behind him, as if to appeal to the rural community, as if to appeal to farmers. Good luck with that. That's another set of people that the Tories haven't exactly done well by. As I was saying earlier, Tory figures such as Grant Shapps, Penny Mordaunt, Gillian Keegan, Johnny Mercer, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, according to this latest Ipsos poll, are all on course to lose their seats. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt faces a close battle in his Surrey constituency of Godalming and Ash. And Cabinet Ministers James Cleverly and Kemi Badenoch are tipped to just about hang on, but they're certainly not safe. And as I say, Nigel Farage, according to this poll, will win Clacton. And the other big news is they say that Jeremy Corbyn will probably lose his Islington North constituency seat. That's the one he has held since 1983. He's, of course, no longer a member of the Labour Party, so he's having to fight that as an independent. And, here's another indication of how badly the Tories are doing. Out of pure default, the Lib Dems, led by that water sports fanatic half-wit Sir Ed Davey, they're on course for 38 seats. I mean, a pretty good performance. All you got to do is dunk yourself in the River Severn, fall off a surfboard, and people will vote for you. That isn't why they're voting for him. They're voting for him because they're not voting Tory. And what about this idea that the Tories now say, oh, we've got to wheel out Boris? Boris, as far as I understand it, is on another well-deserved foreign holiday. He has about 20 of them every year. But he apparently has signed tens of thousands, or put his signature to all these leaflets going through doors saying vote Rishi and all that. But they're hoping he'll come back and get right behind Rishi. But Rishi stabbed him in the back, didn't he? And Boris Johnson, pretty much out for himself. I don't think he's going to come back and help Rishi Sunak. He may have misplaced plans to come back afterwards and stake another claim for the leadership, but he's not going to get it because, as I say, this isn't me talking. I think Partygate was massively overstated in its importance. I think it showed a shambolic kind of leadership. I think Boris Johnson should have stopped all that. It was an absolute mess and a pathetically amateurish spectacle. However, I never thought, oh, come on, it's a piece of cake and a glass of wine. Let's get serious. Well, around the country, people are furious. I have learned through this political campaign, as it were, with all the calls we're getting and all the messages we're getting, that the massive factor that is playing against the Tories is Partygate. They have not forgiven Boris and they have not forgiven the Tory party for that. And so the idea of bringing back the perpetrator of Partygate to boost them in their hour of need is pretty flawed in the first place.
It is. Boris is a busted flush. Now, it takes some doing to have a majority of 80 after the election of 2019, effectively wrapped around getting Brexit done and getting a lot of borrowed seats in the Red Wall north of England, to effectively fritter that away within the space of 2 or 3 years. So Boris Johnson has gone from this sort of, for some, not all, but for some, a lovable rogue character who was there as a great salesman to get Brexit done, but from Partygate onward, the worst elements of Boris Johnson showed itself in that particular issue, whereby sort of brazen disregard, self-entitlement, aspects of laziness, lack of detail, and ultimately Boris Johnson, I think, is one of the greatest political charlatans Britain has ever seen. And I think the public, generally, whatever side of the debate you're on, now think that. And I think Partygate was the moment that he completely destroyed his reputation. And that whole sort of lovable rogue thing, that doesn't wash anymore because of what happened there. So to bring him back, if that happens on this election campaign, that's just going to make the position even worse for the Tories because people haven't forgotten. People are phoning up talkTV, talk radio, and I'm speaking to people, whether it's in London, Cornwall, or Scotland, and they're all saying the same thing about the Tories. Partygate. That was the moment that trust disappeared. As I said, there's many, many other issues, a terrible track record, a number of things, in particular the cost of living crisis. But Partygate was a betrayal. It was a betrayal of the British public at a time of great difficulty and sacrifice through lockdowns. Yeah. And the Tories, if you look at the pattern of opinion polls as well, they've been on the slide for the Tories ever since. Then it gets worse as well because you have Rishi Sunak after Liz Truss, so they look incompetent in terms of changing prime ministers, but also you've got Rishi Sunak, who does not connect with the British people. So you put all those factors together, and I think they're in for a record-breaking night at the election, but for them, not in the right way.
But it just proves how much they still don't get it. You know, that Boris Johnson, if they brought him back, would not do them any favours. They still are not in touch with the fact that Partygate is a massive factor. It continues to be so. As I say, I've been surprised about it. I can't pretend that I was ever that wound up about Partygate. I thought it was useless and pathetic and shambolic of Johnson to allow it, but I didn't think it was, you know, a massive deal. But I'm afraid with the electorate it is. And do you know what I woke up to? This is just going off on a tangent, but this is how pathetic this campaign is. I woke up this morning and, as I do, put on the radio to listen to Mike Graham on the Morning Glory on his breakfast show, his excellent breakfast show, and I hear Starmer talking to some people, obviously on the street, saying, well, you say the thing is, the only poll that matters is on July the 4th. It's like, is this the best you can do? You know, this is just a hackneyed, threadbare, clapped out cliche. If, you know, just don't say it, it will be better. The lack of imagination, the lack of resource, the lack of thinking in this campaign is breathtaking.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, actually, your impression of Starmer is better than the one you do of Sunak. It's actually pretty good. But the thing is with Starmer, his campaign's laughable as well. And one of the reasons they're ahead in the polls is because this government is so lacking anything in terms of capturing the mood of the British public, combined with their track record. It's a track record that's really destroying them. So the alternative is Labour, not because Labour are government waiting, it's because people are pinching their nose and thinking, well, we'll see if we can give them a go. And actually, it's a vote splitting between Reform and Tories that will have an impact in many, many seats, in particular the north of England. So Labour, through, not because of their own efforts, but because of a bit of luck and the split of the vote on the right of centre, may well sneak through in a lot of seats. But they haven't clinched the deal in terms of aspiration and trust with the British people. And you've got Keir Starmer, who is beyond wooden. It's all rhetoric. No, people don't really know what he stands for. The majority of people don't really know what they're going to get with the Labour government. But one thing they do know is that they're fed up with the incumbent.
He's not Rishi. He's like the last election in America. You know, people voted for Joe Biden for no other reason than he wasn't Donald Trump. And I believe they'll vote for Keir Starmer for no other reason that he isn't Rishi Sunak. He doesn't represent the Tories. And in case everyone's thinking this is a Tory bashing session, we are equal opportunity disparagers of all the manifestos and all the candidates. I don't think much of Labour's manifesto. I don't think much of their campaign, although it's a lot more disciplined than the Tories, obviously. I don't think much of the Lib Dems campaign. Seems to involve the leader being up to his neck in water. The only thing I always get disappointed with when he dives in, falls off a board, you know, goes underwater. It's always so disappointing when he comes up again. He'd get my vote if he stays down. But seriously, stay where you are, James, and we'll pick up this theme after these messages.